Hey guys, Ethan here. Just want to do a quick little intro. I realized that when I was doing the episode that you're about to watch right now with Trevor Salzman, I didn't do an intro. I just wanted to jump right into it. We just started jamming. The music was playing and we just picked up on the beat and off we went. So I really hope you enjoyed the episode. We had a blast just jamming and talking about some of the things that really aren't being covered enough in golf instruction. So Trevor's a great guy. Got all of his information linked below. I can't wait for you to watch this episode. And as you can see, this is the first episode with cause and effect to where we're at the studio here at OptiShot Studio. So can't wait for you guys to see the episode. There's a lot of gold in it. Digest it in pieces as much as I want you to sit here and watch the whole thing. There's a lot. So just enjoy it. Happy holidays, and I'll talk to you very soon. Thanks. We go so deep where we're like, hey, activate the hands, like extend the fingers, curl the fingertips, take it, get the lead arm on top and the trail arm under, then take the grip. Now from there, it makes a lot more sense of, oh, okay, the handle's more forward because my lead elbow is pointing at or slightly right of the target. And then from there, now my trail arm pins under here. So now it's like, this is your wall that everything is kind of built around. And then the trail arm works kind of relative to that. And it works on this arc like you're talking about. But there is a lot of pressure. The big thing I know you know this, it is an arc, but there is a lot of downward pressure and there is pressure moving forward towards the target. It's just because we are tilting and rotating, it is arcing, but there is a lot of feeling like the club head is staying outside the hands and there's a lot of downward pressure on the handle. How are you talking about pressure on the handle?
Whereabouts exactly?
We'll say at the address position, because I feel like not a lot of people are really talking about that a lot.
So, I think just even from this standpoint, a very simple education piece, like what we do with the club face. It's like if I push down, it's going to help me close it. I go up, on this axis, also influences the club face quite a bit. And like you said, I think, again, another thing that we might see out of slicers is they get the hands too high. They kind of lose the ability to control that pressure, like what you were talking about, where the heel might be a little bit more into the ground. But yeah, I think a good setup. I like seeing that downward pressure because that downward pressure also helps me create rise in the golf club on the way back.
Love that.
To lift the golf club to create rise, this downward pressure, that to me, if I push down on the grip, club head's going to work the opposite direction of that piece right there. That's where I think right. That becomes also a planing mechanism right there for us. But back to our point, a lot of that's built in at setup. A lot of that right there is built in at setup. It shouldn't
have to be a conscious thought, right? It's like, just get it out of the way and then it'll occur. Like there's so many bad things that people encounter in the golf swing because they don't get these steps right and the coaches are kind of overlooking them. And it's like, wait, we shouldn't have to even worry about that. That's the effect of this not being right.
I'll tell you, I've been fortunate enough to I've been on driving ranges. I've been around a lot of tour players, lucky enough. And I'll tell you, man, it's crazy when you go and you ask these guys and you see what they're working on. I would be willing to bet that 75 to 80+% of them are working on something setup related. The vast majority of them, it's really not as complicated. Like we all think that there's some magic secret these guys have. And I think the majority of the stuff that I've seen and that I've done with players, a lot of time it's setup oriented. Like this girl I coach on the LPGA tour, before her last event that she went to, everything that we did was to build in more of a draw because her miss, she hits a push slice or a push fade. And that is her miss that she absolutely hates. And the very first part of it, she likes to sit her handle back like this. She sits her handle back like this. She applies pressure to the grip here. And as she applies pressure to the grip, the face starts to open, gets too far under the plane. And that creates her push slice. And And so a lot of the time, like all we worked on with theirs, we went to this hole at Turnberry where there was water right. It's a par 3 where it's literally just a lake right. And it's a it was a hard concept for her, even being a tour player, to understand when I take the shaft. Like I like using this analogy quite a bit, especially to your point right here at setup, is if I start to push the handle forward, that's going to project that my path is going to be a little bit more out to the right. Then from there, now this is your setup that you just talked about. So we can see the club face right there would be square to the path. We would close the face a little bit so we could actually build in a draw that she could keep there. That was literally the only thing we worked on. Is she hit 1,500 draws in about 4 days. Start it right, curve it left. Start it right, curve it left. Start it right, curve it left. And literally that was the only thing we worked on, and we built in every bit of that at setup. Like there was nothing else that was worked on other than build in a draw. And it's to your point right here. You've got a pressure on the handle. I think the easiest way as well for amateurs out there to relate to this is set your left hand first. Set this first so that you can come underneath this. I think that's also one of the things that gets a lot of people in trouble.
Yeah, build the wall, right?
I think that's a really, really cool piece right there. I love the way that you say that, is how you say build the wall. Elaborate on that. Elaborate what you mean so that people understand what you mean by build a wall.
So I like it in 2 ways. I like I use it as a way to get the students to understand how, coming into the golf ball, I want the trail shoulder to be working underneath the lead. So I'm kind of getting this kind of stronger grip. So I got the lead thumb on the side of the handle, lead elbow pointing at or slightly right of the target. That's naturally getting the shoulder like shrugged a little, which is making it easier in the downswing to keep the lead shoulder here and force this shoulder to work under, which makes it easier to support keeping the hands on the side of the handle and getting the club in a proper spot at pre-impact. Now from here, I can feel that trail arm go from bent to straight. The club will work down and then basically down the target line. But it just takes away this. A lot of people, when they've got that weaker grip, the lead shoulder's here, the trail arm's here. Now this is going to win the race in the downswing. Right? So now that's where people get here, hands out away from them, club outside the handle, and then now from here it's just holding on, pulling in. Like you got to brace the lead side. Like there has to be a point where when you're coming into the ball, the hands and the handle hit this wall right here, and then that catapults everything, and then you can accelerate your body and tilt. But I just like it for just getting the people to understand how the shoulders are tilting and how that's helping facilitate getting the club working properly from pre-impact to post-impact. Do you like that?
I love that. Like I really like the wall analogy, because that's what I've always called this like swinging into a break. Like I'm trying to swing into a break right here. I'm not trying to continue to accelerate only with my lead side. Okay? Accelerate with my lead side, because then I see if we don't have a wall here, I don't know what this is going to do, if I'm being honest with you. Yeah,
True.
I think the lead side right there is a wall, like you said. If this gets to a stopping point, this is a break, the lead arm's a break. This now gives us the ability to transfer all that energy that we have from our body and move it into the golf club.
Yes.
Like I think, right, even just doing little drills like this for players, so
I love that.
Feeling that right there, like learning how to actually accelerate the golf club so we have a break, so that we have an accelerator.
Yeah,
so the trail side can start to accelerate.
Right, exactly. And the other way I describe it too is that, I mean, you see this with the best ball striker in the world right now, Scotty Scheffler. Like when he's coming into the ball, like his hands are very out here. He uses his hands really well to about right here, and then he just turns and tilts well. But coming into the ball, he's bracing his lead side almost so much to the point where his foot goes back, that braces his lead side even more, which allows him to create this catapult action of the hands of the handle and the club going down the line. If Scotty didn't have that foot move and brace his lead side and keep his right side pinned back, it would be really hard for him to get that catapulting action, right? And then his hand path will get two out here. He'd be wiping across the ball, but that stopping just allows the club to go here and then right down the line.
Decelerates the pelvis right there to where everything else can rip.
Yeah, the deceleration is, I would love to, just really educate people a lot more on this, and we can collaborate on some cool content around this, because I don't think that there's enough education out there on the deceleration and how, we're pushing into the ground, we're pushing into the handle, we know that, but there has to be a spot where we're putting on the brakes to get all this energy and get this mass of this club going down into what I like to think about is the inner quadrant of the ball, and then catapulting. Like I talk a lot about at the top of the swing, I'm getting the students to feel like their back is basically staying to the target. And as they're pushing like into the ground, that trail arm is really feeling like it's pushing almost out this way. And then that kind of allows the club head to get going out away. And you feel like it's a cast, but because this lead arm and this lead shoulder is so braced, this is working with this. So this is bad when you have a weak grip and you don't have the wall, because then this goes here, and now you're out here, trail arm out in front, club out here. So that's where we get the bad casting. But a good casting is when you have the wall here and you're pushing this way, and then it comes down and then through. But it's like, if you have this here, and this is like perfect with how your lead thumb's on the side of the handle, elbow here. If you've got that right, once you get to the top, it's like this is here, this is here. Now just feel like this movement, and this is going to stay right here. If you don't have this and you go here, you're in trouble. But if you have this, that's the money.
I love that. I think especially in the world that we're in, I'm going to say kind of the shallowing phase that we're in, that we've been in for quite a while.
I hate it.
I think the manipulation of players trying to do this, if I look at it, and it's not saying that there aren't good players that do this. There are good players that do this. But absolutely. I think if we take and we look at our average player right here, if they understood how the club face rotates around the axis of the shaft, well, if I go up here and I manually shallow this and I turn and I face it, I got a lot of work to do to get this thing back to square now in a very, very short amount of time. I think it's harder to control your face-to-path relationship. And to your point, I think there's some easier ways to get the golf club to plane out. One, I agree with you right here, is I think the right arm can lengthen. The arms can also work down. So I can lengthen the arm, work the arm down. I think another one that shallows out the golf club is if I start moving my pressure forward into my wall, I'm not changing my arms right here, and that golf club's starting to work down. If I combo that with the right arm straightening, I see that I think that's a much more simplistic move right there for a lot of players to, I would call it keeping the club on the arc or keeping the club planed out. Here we go. All right, let's see it.
This is what motivated me to create this, because if you take, this is heavy, so like you've got something to push against. So that's like the number one use case, right? Like it's heavy, so you push, and it really just allows you to understand how to keep the triangle together. But because of the circular nature of it, it really gives you the understanding of how to get the proper hand and arm rotation, right? So there's this really popular drill, as you know, in golf instruction called the range basket drill, to where you would take a range basket, you'd put balls in it, and you would train the student how to get those balls to fly out of the basket.
Yep.
So that's what we were like, okay, well, I really like that idea. And the guy that helped design this and is like our core engineer, Jeff. He's a genius. He's like, why don't we just put a ball hole right here? And then when they use this, if they did it right, the ball will fly out over the right shoulder, which tells them that they got the proper hand and arm rotation. The lead arm is the wall. Now here we are. I mean, if you push laterally, push this way, I mean, it's like you can't go this way. So the club has to swing inside out, things like that. But that's what motivated us. We're like, okay, no students really understand how to use the hands and arms properly. I'm always doing this range basket drill. So, I mean, you can even like add tension with this, get the tautness. Like there's so many things you can do with it. But yeah.
And I'd add this to it. I'd add this as well to it, Ethan. I'm going to go back. How much of that again is built in at setup?
Yeah, absolutely.
That's setup to where now as I work this back in one piece and I start to fold the right arm, that's kind of my planing mechanism right there.
Absolutely.
But if you get the player where they're this direction, they plane that out, good luck.
Yeah.
There's our face this, right there.
And then they're coming in that arrow or like the blade. I mean, you got no chance from here. But yeah, you're right. We got like these little, we got these little like finger slots for the fingers and like these little fins. So I'll get them to feel like here, and then I'll just get them to go really exaggerated. Like that. And this is pretty difficult to do because it is quite heavy. And then get them into our setup. Now from here, it's like you're wound up. Now you just push, tilt. From here, it's like you can't come over the top. You can't accelerate your body and turn. You have to get the proper plane, push in the proper direction, and tilt the trail shoulder under the lead. It's like this is creating the wall, I think.
Here's what I want to go into. I really like this conversation right here. Is so you continue to use the word push.
Yeah.
Let's educate some people on what are you pushing with? What are we pushing with?
What do you think? How do you describe it? And then I'll kind of talk about how I do it.
I think, and again, I'm going to go right back to, I filmed a bunch of stuff on grip. Okay. So I think one of the most important pressure points in golf, in the entire golf swing, comes from basically the padding on the right hand or the canal of the right hand, and how that sits on top of the left hand. So once we get the left forearm in the right position, it is a fairly stronger grip, but we get that connection right there. I like doing this right here as a drill, is where I'll take a tee and I'll rest it right here on top of my thumb. And that's my pressure right there. And I'm going to feel like that canal is pushing down against my left thumb, and it's also pushing away. So even right in here, I could almost say I have the same pressure, me pushing down. And this is what I use to help manage. Width. If I lose that pressure, the elbow can start to fold, the club can start to work into me. And then what we start to see is, I think, kind of a counterbalance right here, is if the club starts working towards us, then we start to see the player work towards the golf club, or vice versa.
Yeah.
If the spine's kind of my center axis of movement, I'm pushing this away from my spine. This wouldn't make any sense for me to go with that anymore. I'm going to counter the direction that I'm pushing with extension, left bend, and rotation so that I can push against that more.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Right. I love it. I really think that it's like, I use this visual, and this was kind of another thing that motivated this. People that are familiar with my content know that we talk a lot about the beach ball visual. So I basically say that this is a beach ball, and we're standing in a pool of water that's, we'll say, right at waist high. Now, if this is floating at the surface, I got to get my forward bend of my pelvis so I can get my body and my hands in a position to where they can push that beach ball under the water. And that's how I'm really initiating the swing. Is like I'm getting it under the water a little bit to start, And then right when I start the swing, I push. And then that gets the direction of the pressure going down and away from the body. And that's really what initiates the swing, and for every good golfer, in the proper way. Then from there, I say it doesn't stop there. The water will say, instead of waist high, how about it's 360 degrees around you? And you want to keep that same tautness that you had here, 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 and here. You're keeping it on this like wave. It's like this typhoon of pressure, and you're just understanding how to concentrate it away from your body. And that all comes from, I mean, we have like the logo here for the claw, and we just say push against that. Take this wrist and extension, take this wrist and extension, and just push. And then from there, push the beach ball into the water, push it away, push. Always pushing.
Yeah, what I really like about that, especially as well, is get back to this is a circular motion right here that we're on. Mm-hmm. You're creating symmetry. You're now creating symmetry on both sides. So we could say this. Here's my backswing. Here's my follow through. So I'm pushing this around me in this direction. So here's my backswing. Here's my follow through.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah,
exactly.
I like that.
So I can go backswing, follow through.
Right.
That's keeping that pressure and working this around the inclination of my spine.
And as we know, what's that ultimately going to allow to happen more consistently? It's going to create a more consistent radius.
And
so now we get into low point. Like people are always asking me, like, how can I make better contact? Like, what's the easiest way to control low point? And I talk a lot about, obviously we talk a lot so far about the handle and where it's positioned relative to the club head. That's extremely important. But this push pressure, it's like you have to understand how to keep this triangle together and how to tilt the body relative to that triangle and those push pressures. How are you talking about low point?
Another movement. It's like, back to your point, I think if I have more of a constant radius right here, I think it becomes a lot easier for us to manage that right there.
Mm-hmm. What's some ways that you're I like this a lot, because it kind of just creates the idea of like what people are trying to accomplish when they're playing golf, right? That's why, you talk a lot about stack and tilt, and how, it's talking about that consistent kind of, we'll say, like sternum and pelvis position, and just understanding how to control the sternum and pelvis. How are you talking more hands when it comes to controlling these kind of points that you're talking about, or are you talking more body? Like, how do you, or it's obviously based on the individual, but where would you say you're leaning more?
If I'm looking at it, I'm always going to say, like, I think the most basic piece that people need to understand, I think, to control low point, is that the center, the shoulder, needs to be in front of the golf ball. That would be number one. If I have my shoulder back here, it's going to be really hard for me to get the grip handle in front of the golf ball. And I'm probably going to sacrifice contact, or I might sacrifice low point being too far back. Could also make it too far up. That would be my... Are you building
that into the setup? Are you having them kind of maybe preset a little bit of weight forward, or are you kind of 50-50? Like, how are you talking about that at all?
So I think when we look at setups, now that we have more access to force plates, I think we see a lot more players. I think we see a lot more players starting with pressure forward. I think it gives me a place that says, here's my starting point, here's where I need to get back to. I think it also makes it easier for me to start my motion and actually transfer weight to the right before I retransfer it back to the left. I can tell you, if I just started with all my weight right, like I think we see out of a lot of players, I think then we start seeing mass. We see mass and pressure moving at the same rate, as opposed to seeing pressure moving away from mass. There you go, like that piece right there. Like, that's what I
exactly.
see.
Yeah, because they're already here in their brain. They're like, okay, I know I'm not supposed to go that way more. They might, and we do see that sometimes, but for the most part, we kind of see reverse pivot to where kind of the hips go this way. They try to counterbalance themselves, but from here now, it's just going to be staying back here and really hard to control that low point, right?
That's what I see. Like you said, I think it turns into a lot of swing direction issues. I think it turns into swing direction left very, very quickly when the player's here, and then they use the upper body to get their pressure back forward. And as they're using their upper body to get their pressure back forward, that takes the hand path too far out too early, and the only direction they're going is left. Back to kind of what we said we're going to title this call. P1.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. We love the address position. We love P1. Yeah, because I really like when I talk about kind of building the wall. I think part of building the wall is kind of pre-setting a little bit of weight forward and pre-closing the hips and shoulders a little bit. For the average golfer, I think they could benefit from, I mean, you're building the wall here and here, but it's like it goes all the way, right? It's like you're taking this wall and connecting it to like this wall.
Yeah. I mean, I think if we were to if somebody is over the top, if there is one drill that I'd give everybody to do, it would be ball position on your left eye.
Okay.
Handle forward, right arm under, pressure forward. I would start right
Love
there.
it.
And the first place I would go is I'd be hitting 1/2 and 3/4 punch shots, because I can tell you that's going to catch the inner quadrant of the golf ball right there like that. That ball is going to draw.
Right. Yeah, it has to, right? You're basically predetermining what quadrant of the ball you're going to hit by doing that, right?
Yeah, I think it's your most effective way to get somebody to learn how to swing the golf club from the inside is build it in its setup. And if you have to go extreme with it, go extreme with it. I think there's too many people out here living by the definition of insanity, like doing the same shit over and over again and expecting different results. It's not going to change if you look like this. It's set up. Right. You're not going to start getting a 300-yard draw from there.
Yeah, what I did there on that shot I just hit, I followed exactly what you said. I got if I know in my mind my low point of my arc that I'm swinging on is left armpit, right? That's what you said. So now I know that if I take the ball and I put it back more kind of back of that, that's naturally going to get the handle more forward, which, as we were just talking about, if the handle's more forward, naturally that's going to make it easier to get the path shifting to the right. So that was the second component. And then the third component was basically just taking all of this and just going like that.
Well, right.
I love what you did with that alignment stick. I don't have my alignment stick on me right now, but I like how you did that. Where do you put that alignment stick when you do that? I want to steal that. I like that a lot.
What I do right here is I imagine that the golf club right here has airplane wings. So I'm creating a line that would be parallel to the target line, perpendicular to the shaft line. So the more that I build in, so like if I go and I turn and wheel right and push the handle forward, that's going to show me where my path's going to want to move. And then what I can build in from there is I could take one of these lines on here. I could say, all right, so right in here, those are roughly parallel right there. I go in there, I can see how that's parallel. I'm going to close the face to the path, which you can kind of see on there. There's my draw now.
I love that. I love that.
There's my math right there for how I would create and how I would teach somebody to hit a draw.
I love that angle that kind of creates, where it's almost like, I mean, you got like the little triangle there between kind of the angle of the shaft and then the angle that kind of magnet is creating for the face. I really like that a lot.
Man, I'll tell you, it's the only reason right now, Ethan, that I can hit any shot that I want to hit because I build it in its setup. And I have a prediction, or I have a projection already.
Say it again for the people in the back.
I have a projection of what my golf ball is going to do before I ever swing the golf club. That to me makes it way easier, because now my job is just to perform my motion. So what I like about using ball position, grip handle, face to the shaft or face to the path, is with those tools that I can use to design one shot, I can design any. Like, I can build in any shot that I want to hit at setup if I understand that the shoulder joint is the center that the golf club works around, and where the center, or my radius, which would be the golf club and my lead arm, where this sits right there, that angle, that's basically my draw right there.
Yeah. So the vector between those two, the shaft and the alignment stick, is how much it's going to curve, right?
My projected path, and then my face along the axis of the shaft, the rotation of that is my projected curve.
Right.
My job to now take this, to your
Love
point,
that.
like you used with the claw ball right there, my job is now to take this and transport this around the arc. That's my work as the player right there.
How are you transporting it? Are you transporting it with the, this is your kind of main, is this your main kind of foundational piece for transporting it, that trail palm to lead thumb?
If the player has their hands on correctly, now, I'm not going to say that every single person that I coach has this grip. Would it be my preference if I get to build somebody from day one, every single person's going to look like this? Now, do I have a couple players that have weaker grips that
Sure,
that can actually supinate and flex the lead wrist and they get really, really good draws from there? Yes, I do. I'm not going to change
especially
that
the really
player's
athletic
pattern.
ones.
Yeah. But I think it's few and far between. If I'm being completely fair to you, I think it's few and far between. So for me, yeah, I feel like this pressure right here that I build in, if I'm being honest, I don't feel like anything changes apart from my right arm folding. That's the same. Then the right arm unhinges, straightens down. Now I'm in a position, like you said, my wall to swing into.
I love that. Swinging into the wall. I like that. Yeah, I feel like we're the only people that are really, I mean, you're probably one of the few people that I've talked to that talk about the importance of that trail palm to lead thumb knuckle. Like that's, I mean, it's something that you see with every good player. And when we did our grip testing, I mean, we had a spot for the thumb, which is really important, and we had a spot for the hook of the index finger. But we were like, man, oh man, this, if you got this here and this arm is kind of pinned under, I mean, that pressure of how you're applying pressure to that lead thumb knuckle is the pivot point that everything's pivoting around. It's how the fingers are pivoting back of the palm. It's how the club head's pivoting back of the handle. It's like a 3-for-1, 5-for-1 special. Have you always talked about that?
No, I haven't always talked about that. It's like, so it's one of the pressure points in the golfing machine. If you read that, it's a big piece inside of the golfing machine. Now, I know that not every single thing that we've seen inside of the golfing machine is true, but I'll tell you, for that book being written in the time and the day that it was, Homer Kelly was pretty smart.
Oh yeah,
A lot smarter than I am. Let me say it that way.
It's incredible. Yeah, with the pressure point applied to the handle and with the hook of the index finger and that kind of knuckle pad combined with the palm. Yeah, he had a lot figured out.
That right there is, I think that one is truthfully, I think that piece right there is just, if there's one piece that I could teach to everybody, it would be that, because it helps manage my width. I think it also helps us to manage the amount of radial deviation and extension that we have in the wrist. Like if I'm pushing against this, that's about the most that I'm going to be able to hinge right there. If I lose that pressure, I can start to collapse that right there. But
yeah,
I know we've seen this out of far too many players that aren't the greatest ball strikers, and I think it can be fixed. It's like, I think one of my favorite drills right here to do is, I just call this is just like a radius drill. Push away, back and through. And I just do, I don't think anybody can do enough of that drill. It's like, when I first got onto this, Ethan, I'll tell you, like, I remember I was like, okay, I'm going to push this away, because I've always struggled with width. I've always struggled with going this direction. And I'll give you a hint. My grip, my hand used to sit very, very low, like it would cover up my fingernail. And this wasn't that long ago. this wasn't that long ago. Here, I'll show you right here. So like my hand would sit down in here.
Wow.
Over
Yeah,
my
way
thumb.
too low.
I'd still have an overlap. And every time I'd get this internally rotated shoulder look and I'd get narrow and I'd end up here to where I pulled into myself and I had to back away from it. And this would be my impact. So I started working on this pressure point. And I said, all right, well, I'm going to do it until I can actually keep my arms straight. And I remember the very first time, I'll never forget this, dude. I probably have the video somewhere on my phone. It's like, all right, I'm going to keep my arms straight on both sides of the arc just to keep this pressure in. And I look at my backswing, and it looked like this, and I was like, I got 90 degrees of bend in this. It blew my mind, like how exaggerated that I actually
you're feeling like this.
Dude, I would have sworn to God I looked like this. And I looked at it on video, and I was like, wow, that is the best position I've ever been. And all of a sudden, my right shoulder started to retract naturally because I was pushing, and I could actually use my body to pivot around my spine versus pulling on the lawnmower or whatever jazz other people say there.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. The lawn, like starting the lawnmower. Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, and so that right there was like literally, this was like my aha moment when I finally understood what that meant. When I understood, I was like, I can push down, I can push away. That is when I actually started to become a ball striker. That was when I became a ball striker.
Because you're feeling that same thing at impact, right? Like you're basically just like, okay, the ball's just going to get in the way of this pressure, right? Like you're pushing down and on the side, and then you're like, okay, boom, and just hitting that wall, feeling that club go down into the ball, but you're still keeping the same amount of pressure you had at the address position, right? Maybe even a little more.
100%. Like I did this on a call with my community the other night. So I had TrackMan up and running in here. And I was also explaining kind of the release pattern, like you said, and showing, okay, how much speed I can actually create getting the golf club to actually stop right here, keeping that pressure and throwing it and stopping it. It's like, I call it the towel whip. It's like, it's like the transfer of energy. I think too many of us don't actually understand what that is. Like, and I look at all my lessons and everything was follow through as long as you can and get this golf club all the way around you. And I don't think I ever actually learned how to unload or release the golf club. Like I would call this right here, that's a release.
Absolutely.
That's me transferring all the energy that I have in my body, running it down my arms into the grip, into the shaft. And I can hit a 7-iron, 175 yards going.
Yeah.
Doing that.
I love that. Hitting the wall, right? Bracing and just boom, feeling that arm going from bent to straight. And then all that energy is just transferring into the handle, through the handle, and then into the club.
I think where a lot of people, where you need to start with it, you need to start being able to just do something as simple as this, just going, how do I actually slow myself down so that I can speed this up?
Yes, I love it.
How do I slow myself down so I can speed the club up?
I got a cool drill. I do this with almost every single one of my students. I call it the recoil drill. Me and Jonathan figured this out a long time ago, but it's a great drill. So everybody's kind of seen the whoosh drill, to where you kind of flip the club over. So I've got the club flipped over so the grip's here so I can hear that whoosh sound. So what the drill is you're basically making a full backswing, and then you're going to whip the club to the post-impact position to where the shaft's parallel to the ground, and then you're going to recoil it back up to the top again. So slow, it looks like this. So it goes. And it really just gives you an understanding of how the body is going this way and the hands and arms and the club are going this way. But most people, when they do this drill, and then like trying to whip back and the body's moving all over, and it's just literally get to the top, whip it, recoil it back. And when you're recoiling it back, it's really getting you to understand how all the energy is going this way, but the body is staying in tilt as that club accelerates out of the way. So I love that drill. You can hit balls with it too.
That's
So it's
yeah,
just boom, boom, and then recoil it back. It's just
it's funny, Zach. I've never done the recoil all the way back to the top of my motion. Like I've done
so it's
I've
like
done a lot of the
I'll just do a little
recoil.
half swing. So it's like go to there and then I'll pull it all the way back. And just really just trying to whip that club head through as fast as I can, keeping the body back.
How much speed you can create and how straight the golf ball goes.
Yeah.
That's the piece
that's a half swing going 160 yards with a 8-iron. And then I crank it up a little bit and want to maybe go a little further, I can. But it's just... And that gives me even a little bit more. So that goes 180 in the air. But it's just, the speed's there. It's just, you got to understand the sequence. Like, I love what you said about whipping with the wet towel. I always tell people when I'm standing over the ball, it's like, I feel like I'm just trying to whip the inner quadrant with the heel ahead of the toe. And then if I've got my wall correct, the toe will pivot over. It's going to feel like I'm coming in like this, but I'm pushing in the proper way to where I'm going to get the gear effect of the club doing what I want it to do. But yeah, whipping, I love that.
Explain that piece right there to everybody. Explain what you like, the gear effect piece of the golf club.
So, I mean, there's built-in gear effect. I mean, you're swinging a cylinder. So, I mean, the club naturally wants to go like this, right? We're on this sideways angle on a bent forward axis on an inclined plane. We're applying a lot of forces out away from our body to where the toe of the club naturally wants to do this. So what I'm getting my students to really understand, and I talk about this quite a bit, is that I do feel like you have to understand how the toe is pivoting relative to the heel. It doesn't just kind of stay this way. I think there has to be, and from the testing that we've done, you have to let that blade open up a little bit because you have to counter this motion. So if you don't counter that, and maybe this is because I'm more predominantly a stronger grip advocate because I like all the benefits that it kind of enables, I think you have to understand that you have to build in, you have to counter how much that toe wants to turn over. So when I'm coming into the ball, the toe is here, the heel is here. If I've got my wall in the proper spot, as my trail arm goes from bent to straight, I'm pushing on the side of the handle to stabilize that handle so I can get the heel to hit before the toe as I'm hitting the inside part of that ball. If I'm here and I've got the club in a good spot, club face, we'll say square, right? If I lose this wall and I stop pushing, the toe is going to kick over and that ball is going to go left of left because that's what it naturally wants to do when your hands are on the side of the handle as much as they are when you build the wall, right? So if I'm coming into the ball and I lose that wall, that thing's going to start left of left. And then however fast the toe is accelerating relative to that is going to determine how it's going to curve. But there's built-in gear effect when you take your hands and put them on the side of the handle. You're making this want to happen more, which for the average person, they need to feel that. So that's where you have to understand how to kind of get the toe back of the heel. And that's why I put a face on that's why I put grooves on the claw ball, because it's like when you're coming into the ball, this naturally wants to happen. So you have to understand how to counter that with a little bit of hand arm rotation here. It can't just be this way because you've got to have some kind of movement. It's like you just have to understand how the club is working from pre-impact to post-impact. Learn with some half swings and just learn how that heel is hitting the inner quadrant first. Then you can kind of build up from there. But there is some rotation going on. It's not just like this or bowing and shutting the face and then holding it open. This is 10 and 2. Like this is your steering wheel of your golf swing.
Yeah, and so you look at that, there's a rotation of the forearm right there. Now, and that rotation can
Right.
work independently of the shoulder also. I think that's another piece. I wish people understood that better, is that I don't have to just rotate my entire shoulder to get the golf club to move. I can keep the shoulder right here. This is moving. That's moving around. This would be moving around my elbow joint right here. My entire shoulder doesn't have to move when I do that piece right there.
Right, correct. That's why this is so important with the pushing, right? What we're talking about with the trail palm to lead thumb knuckle, because that's the foundation that everything is pivoting around. If we're trying to create stability at impact with the hands, the handle, and the face, then we have to build that stability in right at the setup and then understand how to maintain it. So as we're coming into the ball, we can control that gear effect and get that proper hand to handle to face relationship from pre-impact to impact to post-impact. You got to build it in. And like, it's like you want this to happen. There's a lot of built-in speed here if you're letting that club release. It's never rolling, right? It's never rolling over. That's a big piece, right? Like
there we go.
When you're coming into the ball, I don't ever want to see this, right? The toe is never beating the heel. The toe is never beating the heel relative to, we'll say, the axis of the shaft.
Now you're speaking my language, buddy. I like it.
And that's why I like the lead wrist feeling like the grooves are staying towards the sky and the knuckles are staying towards the sky. Because then that allows you for the toe to never beat the heel. You would never take a strong grip person and teach them to bow and supinate. I mean, now the gear effect already wants to do this. You're building in that. You got no chance.
This is one of my favorite drills that I do with players that struggle with, we'll call it face control in the release, because like I think we've said here tonight, hopefully everybody understands this, is we're building on and we're saying that a release is a good thing. I'm not preaching hold off. I won't preach a hold off. So one of the things I like to do, one of my relationships that I use is the logo on the grip. Well, can I release this, like this T right here that I have in my left hand on top of the grip? Can I release this and still finish with the T on top of this grip right here? Versus, like you said, versus the twist where that point's too far left and too far down. And I like even just running through this very slowly and just saying, all right, from P6 to P8, can I release this and keep the on top of the club? Because that means I'm also maintaining the relationship between the face and the shaft, or what we could call the path, and working this around. Like this is a release right here where that T is. It's
right,
one of
so
my
the knuckles. So you're keeping that. You've got extension in the wrist at the follow through.
Tons of extension.
Love that.
Tons of
extension. People are scared of that. People are scared of that. They think it's got to be this, and then there. They think that that's how it has to be. And it's like, people, I mean, even if you've got a weak grip and you bow, you better re-cup quick.
To your point right there, so let's take Dustin Johnson. Dustin Johnson goes from this, and he might be the fastest player that gets it back into extension.
Right.
He goes from flex, bowed, right into extension. That's where you see his golf clubs all the way over here before he's gotten to the finish. That's where you see this finish out of him where the golf club's all the way over here, and he's still down in this posture like that. He does not hold the face on.
No, that thing is accelerating away from him a ton. And he's got the brace though, where he's got this, and it's just
100%.
I like the knuckles. I like the simple way for people to get it is just knuckles towards the sky. Like just get a little bit of extension at the address position. It's okay. Like, I know everybody's scared of this. They're like, oh gosh, like I can't have extension of my wrist. I got to be this way because if I go here, I've been told if I'm at the top of my swing, if I have this, I'm going to be too open with the face. And yeah, that might be the case if you're always slicing the ball and you have a really weak grip. So maybe you do have to feel that be a little flatter. But I mean, if you're like severely hooking the ball or something, like from some of my lessons, I'll get them to feel like this way and this way, just because I want to control that dynamic loft and get them to understand how to thump the trailing edge of the club. It's like, you got to understand that it's okay for the wrist to go this way. Now, you better have the wall built, and there's a lot of things you need at the address position. But, I mean, if you look at the data, there's cup.
If I actually look at my backswing, this would be, that's my left wrist position right there.
Solid.
I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. Is like when we look anatomically at strength positions of the wrist, I can hold my body mass up like this. If I tried to do that this way, I'm toast.
Ooh, I like that.
If we look at strength right here, well, extension of the wrist, we've got it's actually quite a bit of strength in that anatomical position. I haven't seen anybody yet do push-ups in flexion.
Yeah, I mean, why would you, right? It's like, I mean, you take the same logic for that of like, why would you swing a golf club with the exterior part of your hand and not the interior part of your hand? Like, can you apply more pressure and leverage this way or this way? That's what I always tell my students. I'm like, if you were, this is a really good one. If you were running at me full speed, and the way that I would brace you is I would go like this. I would go, and I would brace that way because I'm controlling your mass and how your momentum is coming this way relative to my mass of my body with this pressure, right? The same pressure that I'm pushing that beach ball under the water and maintaining that pressure coming into the ball, dunking the beach ball back under the water, and then coming through is the same pressure I'd be bracing. I wouldn't have you coming at me and be like this. Like, what? You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
So why would I use that when I'm grabbing a golf club? I don't want to use the exterior part of my hand. It's not natural. It's creating the inability to stabilize the face at impact, because now if I'm saying, hey, this wants to happen at impact, would you rather have this to stabilize it, like you just stabilized your body on the ground, or would you have this, like you just stabilize your body on the ground? I need to control all this energy and all this mass and all these forces I'm applying into the handle. So I need this wrist to be doing its job working with this wrist.
Be a really, really fascinating day when we get to dive into actual pressures that are applied, torques and pressures that are applied on the actual grip. I think that's going to be more important than ground pressures.
It's coming. It's going to unlock a whole new world of golf. Like, the reason that we're in this kind of position we're in right now with the body and our waist, it's because it's all that's been measured, right? It's like, the handle is like the brain, right? There hasn't been a lot of sensors put in the brain, so we don't really know a lot about the brain. It's the same way with this. This is the brain of the golf club, and nobody's really kind of, from a consumer standpoint, figured out how it's controlling the club face and how that's controlling why the ball's doing what it's doing. So, not yet anyway.
It's when I explain this to a lot of people,
it's coming.
When I explain this to a lot of people and I ask them what they think the center of the golf swing is, and why I say the left shoulder joint is because this would be one of my first places that I can form a radius and create a circular motion, but it's my first connection point to the object that I'm actually swinging. It's the connection point to this, which we go back into that. It's pretty important. And I think what we're doing with the hand path and with the hands in relation to how the club face is working around the axis of the shaft is really important too. Personally, I think it's more important than ground pressure. I think it's a lot more important than ground pressure.
Me too.
And I think it's something that we need to shed more light on from an industry standpoint is, what are we actually doing with the grip and how is that affecting? Because at the end of the day, I still haven't seen anybody strap a golf club to their chest and hit a golf ball very successfully. And I haven't seen anybody strap a golf club to their hips and hit a golf ball, or to their pelvis and hit a golf ball very successfully. think the hands, the forearms, the shoulders, man, there's so many gems inside of that I think we need to shed more light on from an industry standpoint, from a speed lever standpoint, a true speed lever standpoint.
Everybody's looking for more speed, right? It's right there. Like everything that we're talking about right now and how we're concentrating the pressures and how that's creating forces and torques and that's creating the speed that we're looking for, and building this wall is getting that speed working in the proper direction, because speed is one thing, but you have to understand the direction that speed is going in order to stabilize the heel to toe relationship relative to kind of we'll say the fulcrum of the mass of the club, right? So it's like you have to understand this is the easiest way to create speed, right? I could do a swing to where my feet, I do this all the time with my students, where it's like feet close together and just get them to feel how that club is accelerating. And just there's so much speed there. And see, that's what wants to happen, right? That toe wants to really snap over because I didn't build the wall when I did that, right? So I do that same swing there again, where, I mean, that went 168 yards. Now I do that same thing with the feet close together, but I build the wall, do like I'm doing with the lead arm on top, trail arm under, and then it goes a little bit straighter, right? So you're just playing this game of how is the club head accelerating relative to the object you're holding, which is the handle, and relative to your body.
I think we do. I think we've got to understand that we have one thing accelerating and another thing decelerating. I love that. I think we have to have a counterbalance of those two pieces to really get the energy transferred efficiently into the golf club to produce speed right there.
So you would say that most people think that both are accelerating at an equal rate, and that's the biggest problem?
Taught golf in mainland China. It's probably the only place in the world that I've actually seen people hit a golf ball and eat dirt right afterwards as well. Like literally, you'd see swings where it was like this type of a backswing, and then it was this stuff.
Yeah, right.
And I think that's just trying to accelerate everything in the same direction at the same time, which I guess we could say is sequencing, which sequence is we could probably go for another 2 hours if we wanted to start talking about sequencing.
Stay tuned for episode 2 with Trevor. We're shaking up the industry here.
Look it up a little bit. I think that'd be a really, really fun one to go into.
That would
sequence.
Be. Yeah.
And what we view as sequence, and how can we accelerate? God, I could go into the hip piece and the pelvic piece for days right here with my with my
we're gonna save that. We're gonna tease the viewers to watch episode 2 of Cause and Effect with me and Trevor, where we're gonna dive even deeper into all this stuff. I mean, this is just kind of giving you guys a little bit of an idea of the talks that we're having, the kind of minds that we're assembling around trying to fix golf instruction, right? Like golf instruction is broken right now. I mean, we see it in the content that we're seeing online. We're seeing it in the people that are coming to see us for golf lessons, and we're just trying to help people and make this game a little bit easier, right? And that's why, I mean, I'm very selective of who I have on here, because I really care about our followers. I really care about the industry, and I want to make sure that I'm having people on here that are passionate about helping people play better golf and have some data and have some information to back it up. Yeah, that's why this was a blast. I love what you said. I love what you said, how the big thing I talk about a lot is that when you're learning how to swing a golf club, you have to understand that the club face is the car and the steering wheel is the handle.
Yeah.
Or the handle is the steering wheel. And it's your job to understand how to steer that car around you and back to the ball consistently every time on the swing plane, which is the road, right? And if you're learning how to use just your body and your knees and your hips, that would basically be like taking driver's training and just learning how to drive with your feet, knees, and elbows and wondering why you're crashing your car over and over again.
We could probably almost get to a point like I can move my body pretty far right here without moving the golf club. So there's a lot of, and like, yeah, I think there's a lot of let me start with I'd say this first is I think there's a lot of unbelievable golf coaches in the industry right now. I think there's some absolutely phenomenal guys. Like I've been very fortunate, the people that I've been able to learn from and coaches that have mentored me, and I kind of get to take some of that and spin it off into my own thing and build on a lot of the things that they've been kind enough to share with me. And I think it's important that we as an industry we share that with everybody. It's like the beauty of the internet right now is we have the ability to touch the masses. Before, when I first started teaching golf, we didn't have anything like this. We didn't have Instagram. We didn't have YouTube. Literally, like you had your 20, 30, 40 players that knew you from your home city, and that was it.
Right.
And if you got lucky enough that Tiger Woods was in your home city, you're a tour coach. I think it's a really neat opportunity that we have. I think sharing information that is logical, fundamental, and is going to help players actually understand why, at the end of the day, why the golf club and why the golf ball is doing what it's doing. I think that's the information that's going to help us. And it's not to say that the body doesn't have anything to do with that, because the body does play a very, very large role in that. But I think we need to learn, like to your point right there, firstly, is how do we take this golf club and move it three-dimensionally in space and make the golf ball go somewhere? I think a lot of our explanations need to be around the instrument that we're using that's designed to make the golf ball go somewhere. How do we understand this better? And our first relationship to that is our hands. How do our hands work in driving? Like you said, I really like that analogy, is we have the car, steering wheel, and the swing plane would be our road. How do we steer that? How do we steer that around us three-dimensionally?
Right. That's the mission I feel like I'm on right now. I mean, I used to work for a company that was more focused on kind of what the body was doing, and the body is extremely important, but I feel like there were some things that maybe weren't being talked about enough because of the data that was available to us. So that kind of motivated us to go figure out the data and wrap some sensors around the grip and try to figure out kind of my theories and theses of what I think is actually happening. And and I feel like it's just going to open up a whole new world of golf instruction. And I'm excited for the golfing population to get their hands on all this information that is relatively new to a lot of golfers. But man, it's just going to make golf so much easier. Like, I can't wait.
To make it fun. Like, I think most importantly is it's going to make the game of golf more fun. It's going to make it easier for people to comprehend cause and effect, why things happen, and really giving yourself a roadmap of how to get better at it. Like, that's going to be able to do with all the information that we have coming.
Yeah, I agree. For hours. Like, I'm excited. This is one of the things when I restarted up the podcast, I mean, Jonathan and I did a lot of episodes with this, but I wanted to just kind of reach out to these people that I've seen their content online. I respect a lot of the mentors that they've had or the information that they're putting out. And it's just so cool for me because this is the first conversation of many. Like, I'm trying to build lasting relationships. And I think this is going to be a really fun one to explore.
Well, we will continue diving deeper into this. And I think that'll be one of the next ones. That'd be a fun one to go into, is sequence.
I love it. Thanks for this, man.
I appreciate it. Thanks, Ethan.
And we'll talk soon. I got all of Trevor's information linked below, guys. Go check him out. He's doing some really awesome stuff. He'll help you. So go check out all of his social media information. I got it linked below, and we'll see you in the next episode.